can we tokenize health and sports data? I'm Caroline Bowler. Crypto Corner starts now. Welcome to Crypto Corner, presented by BTC Markets, where each episode we explore the latest crypto market trends. In this episode, I sit down with 2024 Paris Olympian and BTC Markets sponsored athlete Tori West to discuss her remarkable experience at the Olympic Games and the journey as CEO and founder of blockchain company Equil Labs. Tori, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to chat today.
That's so good. So I have to ask, obviously, first question, can you share your experiences and the highlights from what were fantastic games in Paris 2024?
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. It was certainly the most beautiful track I've ever competed at. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, like qualifying for that team. Like if you told me a year ago, I would have had to do 4 heptathlons in 4 different countries over 11 weeks. I would have said, you're crazy. And somehow I pulled it off. I qualified on the 11th hour. And then I got to go to the Olympics and call myself an Olympian. So there was so much I learned about myself. There was so much experience I gained. And honestly, in that whole journey, like I also confirmed a lot of the things that I think about when it comes to blockchain and sports and health and performance data. So it was just an incredible journey all around.
It just sounds so incredibly inspiring as well. And certainly we're looking forward to seeing the results from the LA Games. But just to take that bit about inspiration, what was it that inspired you to start Equil Labs? What is Equil Labs actually is probably a good question to start. And how does the technology work?
Yeah, so Equil Labs is a development company I founded in 2020. And it was interesting the timing of when I found it. It was actually when COVID first hit. And as an athlete, I had just had a breakout year. I scored 6,000 points, which is a huge barrier in my sport. And, was on top of the world. And then everything shut down. And I had a lot of spare time on my hands. And at the time I was a digital developer. I mostly did web and phone app development. And then at that time during COVID, obviously, I found out a lot more about blockchain. Obviously, we went through a bull run in 2021 and I started to see a lot of opportunity. And because I wasn't competing and I had a lot of spare time, I guess was like just jumped straight in and realized that there was huge opportunity. And then, so basically my idea when I started it was realizing that as athletes, we produce a lot of data, whether that's training data, performance data, stats, that go on displays during games, or even health data we produce that goes to, reporting organizations. And I realized there's actually, a lot of value around that data, but as an athlete, seldom do we actually get recompensed for that. Like, there's no real way to earn around that, but yet it's harvested and some companies do make a profit around that. So I thought one way we could solve that was tokenizing it, giving athletes ownership over the data. And so that was like the starting point. And then over the last, 4 years, we've been working on that idea, got a grant from Ripple back in 2022 and went through that whole development process, working on the XRP ledger, and then eventually led to the EVMs or Ethereum. So it was a very organic process, which was birthed in my own experience. And then, the whole journey has just been about, obviously waiting for the technology to mature. I mean, I don't think consumer markets are quite ready for ownership fully. And that's been our biggest challenge, is realizing that, we can create a product that has blockchain enabled and has ownership, but we really do have to abstract away all the, crypto native stuff that we're used to for people who aren't really familiar with it. So, that's my background and how I got to where I am. And I feel like I live a pretty exciting life now, getting to experience the Olympics, but also building this brand new world of blockchain.
It seems like as if you're somebody who really enjoys the challenge, definitely, and likes to compete at the very, very highest levels, definitely. And I take on board your point as well about how, people don't necessarily need to know how the technology works in order to feel those benefits of the technology, which is probably, a good way to kind of ask, like, how does Equil Labs aim to benefit the athletes and the sports industry as a whole?
Yeah, so the first thing is just creating a really easy way to tokenize data. So when we first started, it was a very clunky way of like, NFTs and whatnot. But now obviously it's like, a simple click. All right, this data, I own it. It's in my wallet. I can distribute it where I want to. So that's like the first step. So we are essentially creating a consumer app for athletes to be able to put all their stats in one place. And then also all the data that they produce from like their Garmin watch or their Aura all goes into one place. So the first sort of problem we're solving is like ownership, like giving that experience of ownership. And the second one is just actually, I guess I call it centralization through micro centralization. So I don't want all my data, with a big company. I want all the data with me in one spot in my wallet. So I become the central point of everything to do with my data as an athlete. So so it's a consumer app, and we're very close to launching hopefully early next year.
And when you spoke to, I assume you spoke to other athletes when you were in Paris about what it was that you were trying to do. Like, did they understand the benefits that you were trying to put forward to them, or what was their reaction?
Yeah, certainly. Well, it's definitely a different way of thinking, right? And I think explaining it to athletes can be difficult at times because you don't know what you don't know, especially when it comes to the idea of ownership. Like, how can I own something digitally? And what I realized is that in order for athletes to understand it, they have to experience it. So when we put them through testing and they can see how it's all in one point, they're like, oh, I get it now. Like I'm producing these results, like track and field is a perfect example. And all my results just get listed, like on a website. So you just view it on the website, but there's no sort of ownership mechanism around it. It's just like, it's just there, you can see it. And I say, oh yeah, that's my result. So once athletes start to realize, oh, I can have all my results in one place and I can register for things through my wallet. And therefore, if I'm connected to the event that I'm registered to, then I am able to earn benefits from that as well. So a perfect example is there is an event that's starting to be run in America where it's actually taking on board this idea that athletes need to be have real ways to earn by competing in events. So it's really simple. Basically, an athlete competes and then a percentage of sales gets sent to the athlete who's competing, because essentially people are buying tickets to go see these athletes. And that's something that's actually not common practice in a sport like track and field. So by creating wallets and I guess accounts that way where athletes' result is put there, we create ways and open up doors for them to be earning for events that they compete at, and it's all verified through blockchain technology.
And I think with that too, when we were talking previously, you were talking about how the applicability of blockchain, is bigger than just in traditional finance or within NFTs and so forth. So, from what you're describing, you're talking about a greater intersection between the sporting industry and blockchain technology. Would that be a fair way to describe it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we're seeing more hybrid experiences when it comes to sport. Like obviously sport is a very real world thing. It's not like gaming where you're in a digital world. You go, like I went and watched the Australian Open this year and you're watching two physical people play. However, you can see the digitization of it happening in real time. When the ball goes out, it's not a person calling it out. It's a recording of a person yelling out and a computer is sensing where the ball is exactly. Wow. So we're already seeing these hybrid experiences with sport. Every game you watch when it comes to AFL or footy, you have all the stats on TV. There's actually like data companies that are literally harvesting all that data and selling it to gambling companies or, sports broadcasters to create these experiences with data. So you can see just there's a whole layer of value on athlete data, which most athletes don't benefit from. So, once you start to see it, it becomes, more and more apparent. I've certainly experienced that firsthand, but it's opening up in all sports all across the world, the more digitization of experiences.
And have you found, as you're building out Equil Labs, you would have seen any number of different challenges? Understanding blockchain possibly being the least of them in terms of the wider audience understanding blockchain. Well, what have been some of those challenges that you've managed to face down as you've been building out your business?
Yeah, I guess there's been two main ones. I think the first one's more at a personal level. Like when I first started building in blockchain, I learned through internet communities. Like I learned watching YouTube and then being on Discord services, and that's how I sort of built my skill set. And so I wasn't really engaged with the community in person. So that was in my early days. And certainly in the last year, I've started to become aware of like organizations like Upside and how many community events there are in Australia. So for me, being immersed around other people who are building has been a huge value add, like just to understand that people are walking out this journey and it's hard. And so that was the first thing, just feeling a bit isolated, and then eventually learning that there are other people doing this as well, which is exciting. And I think the second thing too was just there was a lot of fear around like regulation and what actually are we allowed to do, because this is so new and there isn't really clear boundaries about what we can actually do. So I think the way I've overcome that is because I'm more connected with the community now, I can actually talk to people who are a lot smarter than me and know how to ask the right questions and steer me in the right way. And so that's been a big part of this journey as well, is just working with people who are like trying to push the frontiers of what's possible and what we can actually bring to consumer markets.
And it really sounds as though, as you describe your journey, your experience, that you have been pushing this boulder up the hill for the last few years to get to the place where it is now today. So what are your goals and plans? Like how much further are you pushing this boulder as we move through the rest of 24 and then on into 25 and beyond? Like what's the big plan for Equil Labs?
Yeah, well, certainly the first major thing is getting it out to the market, getting it to consumers and giving them this experience that hopefully solves the problems they have. Because I guess my thesis has been if I can solve my own problems, then it's going to solve a lot of other athletes' problems as well. So that's the first major thing. And because it is such new technology and there can be grey areas, we're just trying to toe the line to do it safely, because ultimately blockchain has got a bad rep. It's a bit of the Wild West. It's a scary thing to release in some aspects to consumer markets. So creating a product that is actually useful but is also, safe for users and they perceive it as safe is really important to me. And that's certainly something I'm actively working towards in the next 12 months. But that's the company goals. And also the other thing is we really want to partner with like governing bodies as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I say governing bodies, each sport, particularly Olympic sports, already have bodies within each country that look after like registrations of athletes and also insurances and what events are run. And so the idea is we really want to bring them onto this technology, because then they can be, I guess, the gatekeepers and verification for results and also distribute stats out to athletes. So it's just, we want to create a way, obviously we're building for athletes, but athletes are already in digital systems through these governing bodies. So if we can create tech for these governing bodies that allows them to easily distribute their results and also information to athletes, then that solves a lot of big problems we have when it comes to onboarding. So we're really just trying to get in with those systems. And I guess as I do that, I'm also got these goals in track and field as well.
You have so much on your plate, Tori. You do seem to really enjoy the challenge, that's for sure. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really great to hear and understand a bit more about your ambitions, both on the field and off the field. We really, really appreciate your time and wish you all the very best of luck for the years ahead. But thank you so much today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This is Ticker, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.